Hi everyone, I'm Kieran Taylor.
I'm Martin Welsh.
I'm Emma Murison.
And welcome to another episode of Those Pension Guys. So, elephant in the room time. If you are watching the podcast, you might have noticed, Kieran looks a little bit different. I'm actually recovering from Bell's palsy at the moment. So, Bell's palsy is a nerve condition that basically causes a, hopefully, not so permanent, paralysed side of the face. So, if you notice a little bit of a difference and are looking incredibly serious, you'll know the reason why. And I won't lie, when I was thinking about the podcast last night and even this morning, I did think to myself, should I really be doing this? Is this maybe a time I should maybe go and sit out for a bit? But with the great support of you two, my lovely wife at home, and even me just thinking, I really enjoy doing this. So why would I deny myself something that I really enjoy doing? So here we are back. And on that note, actually, Emma, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk a bit about what it means to be a client of Welsh Taylor Wealth. So we're going to cover things like what kind of clients we work with, what sort of services we offer, and the fees as well. But before we get into too much of that, it'd be good to hear, Martin, maybe you could explain about the difference between restricted and unrestricted advice.
Absolutely. So we've spoke about this before, obviously in podcast 2, about us going from restricted to independent. But you're right, it's good to just set the room again to remind our listeners that in the UK, you can be one of two things. You can be a restricted advisor or you can be a fully independent advisor. Being fully independent, like ourselves, it means that you've got the choice of any platform. You've got whole of market, as they would call it, funds, platform, fees, the advice fees that you charge. You're in full control, so you can make all the right decisions for your business and your client. A restricted advisor, quite often part of what you'd call a network, they have those restrictions. So they maybe can't choose from all the funds. They maybe don't get to choose from all the different providers. They maybe don't even get to choose their charging structure. That's decided by somebody else. Yeah. The big problem when it comes to restricted advice is when you look at a client, for example, are they definitely the top priority? That was our worry. If you run a big company with multiple shareholders in a fairly restricted environment, are some of the decisions being made for the benefit of the client or benefit of the shareholder? And that's kind of the main differences. There's room for both, and we've chosen the independent route.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but over the past, I'd say maybe 2 years, when an inquiry has come in, I would say 9 out of 10 times the client will want to ask, oh, by the way, are you guys restricted or are you independent?
Yes.
So I think this is coming even more in the public consciousness of
more understanding.
Yeah, who am I actually dealing with here and why is that going to benefit me? And would you say in your experience, Martin, that people tend to want an independent advisor? Does it matter to them?
I see that a lot. It's good you brought that up because I've definitely noticed the last few years there's been a big drive on any inquiry website, phone in, referral. Are you an independent financial advisor? We're really fortunate. We've got some great professional connections, accountants, solicitors, etc. And they're quite big on that as well. I did notice that they want to be referring to an independent financial advisor who doesn't have any constraints.
Yeah, definitely.
And when we get these inquiries, what sort of clients typically do we work with?
Good question. So it's one of these that I think organically over time, you kind of end up getting to meet all walks of life with people. But obviously where we are geographically, you do get a lot of people that work in the oil and gas industry, for example. We do have small business owners. A lot of them have come, for example, accountants and things like that, where what you find is that accountants and financial advisors often stray into each other's backyards. But as soon as it crosses over to the financial advice camp, the accountant has to say, oh, I'm not authorized to do that. You need to go and speak to an advisor. Equally for us, though, it's really good to have these connections because a client could ask us, say, a tax advice question. Well, technically, we're not allowed to give tax advice, so that's what it has to go back to an accountant. We deal with families, we deal with trusts, deal with individuals, we deal with business owners, but organically, it's grown over time. And what I really like is you get to meet more people from different walks of life purely because of who you get introduced to. So, for example, particularly when we've had with an accountant as well, that we've met a lot of people in the fishing industry, for example, and it's been really interesting to understand how that industry works, problems we might have, tax issues, etc., and how you can add a lot of value giving financial advice. But I've even ended up giving advice to clients that have got friends and family in London and Kent and all sorts of stuff, haven't we? It's just organically the way it's grown.
It is. It's amazing when you look at the demographic of the clients that, of course, we're in Aberdeen, so we've got a lot of energy workers, we've got a lot of business owners, but like you say, fishing, farming, specific other industries as well. So it is really, really exciting. Yeah. And we do have some sort of niche all over the UK, sort of individual clients as well. So no 2 days are the same, are they?
I think the part's really important as well is that what we provide as a business is ongoing financial advice. If you're looking for a transaction, we're probably not for you. And listen, that happens sometimes. We both had the phone calls, haven't we? That, oh, I had this pension statement in, I want to cash it in, I need an advisor to sign it off. Can you sign that off?
Yeah.
No, we can't and don't get into that. We don't want to give transactions. We want clients that believe in ongoing advice and the ongoing value that can be delivered by working with an advisor. And I think that tends to yield the best results, doesn't it?
It does, because we all know budgets change things, tax rules change, that whatever advice you give will unlikely be the right advice over a 10-year period. There's always going to be tweaks and changes necessary to that.
And even the clients' relationships, how they move things in life, their plans, organically it will change. So the financial plan has to go along with that. So it's hard, if you give one piece of advice that isn't going to be relevant in 10, 15 years' time, probably not. If you can review that plan and make it better, I'll repeat that point, I think it yields better result for the clients.
So with all those changes going on throughout a client's life, how do you make sure that you're, continuously delivering value?
Yeah, really important point. And that's where the annual reviews really play their part. Now, technically and kind of on a contractual basis that we give an annual review to clients as a minimum. But I actually think it's the little soft touches we have with clients over the course of the year. For example, we've got an upcoming budget, so want to be able to speak to some clients about it, that when we know what Rachel Reeves is going to do, who wants to guess that? But there's certain things we think are specific to clients, we'll pick up the phone and say, listen, I know this was the plan long term, there's going to be changes to this, that, and the next thing. Actually, we need to start looking at some of this. That's where the real value is added. And even from a compliance point, isn't it? One of the huge things we have to do is ensure, is your advice still suitable? So taking into your clients all their circumstances over the past 12 months, what's changed, and actually is the advice you gave last year as suitable as it is today?
And I think one of the really important things that we've kind of all learned over our time in this industry is the actual dynamic of the relationship. It's, as you say, it's not transactional, and it is very much like a working relationship. It has to be two-way,
There's kind of an unwritten rule I often think as well, and it's come up with one or two clients. You've got to like each other. If it's going to be a meeting that's had every single year, and you have to be willing to share information with one another, personal things about your life and your circumstances.
Sort of trust needs to build.
Yeah, you're not going to do that with someone that you don't like. I'll always remember, and I'll hark back to one of the firms that we worked with previously, and there was one of the clients who eventually came on board with ourselves, but I remember he spoke about the previous advisory team, and it was actually his daughter that came into the meeting at the time, and she said, Dad, why are we doing this? I said, what do you mean? That you and him clearly don't like each other. Like, that was uncomfortable for me being in that meeting. And it actually took a third party for him to look and think, yeah, why am I doing this? I don't like this guy. Why would I engage every year? So I think having that personal relationship and that mutual respect is so important. Yeah,
the trust is so important, especially as you say, it's such detailed, personal information. You don't want to be just sharing it with anyone.
Definitely.
So Martin, what kind of services do we offer at Welsh Taylor Wealth?
Yeah, great question. So I guess probably the bread and butter, if you want to call it that, we do loads of retirement planning, so that's taken somebody from in their 30s, their 40s, they're a long way away from retirement. They want a plan, they want it invested, they've maybe got a workplace scheme, they're maybe doing their own thing, they want it professionally managed, they want to maybe go into markets that they don't 100% understand, they want it to be managed. So that could be what we call the accumulation client, looking to just put away X amount every month, or bonuses or lump sums. But that could also include a business owner who then wants to add in funds as well. And then the decumulation phase as well. So somebody's getting close to retirement. They've maybe got a number of pensions, sort of scattered about if they've moved jobs. So that could be consolidating them. It could be going into drawdown, putting a plan in place. And that's one of the things I love the most, really looking at somebody's plans to say, well, this is what I want to achieve. I'm either 5, 10, 15 years away from retirement, or I am away to retire. And you can map out that plan. You can tell them they can go on their holidays. Or unfortunately be honest and say, we can't do that yet. We need to build that up. So pension planning, massive for us. We do investment planning for clients. So it might be somebody wanting to put money away monthly, or lump sums again. It might be an inheritance that they've received. There's loads of different wrappers. We're not going to go and confuse all our listeners, but there's the types of ISAs, stocks and shares, bonds, offshore bonds, loads of different ways that we can invest money in. That's our job. So a client comes to us saying, I want to do X or I want to do Y, and it's our job to then decide, here's the best tax wrapper, or tax relief that we can achieve for the client. And this is the best part of the plan. And linking back to what Kieran said, it's always linking that back to annual reviews and tweaking it where necessary. I guess tax planning, massive, and that's became even bigger now that the budget changes last year with inheritance tax potentially on pensions, on business sales. That's causing a lot more questions and a lot more need for professional advice. So we do a lot of sort of the inheritance tax planning or tax mitigation, if you want to call it that, for income tax relief, etc., capital gains tax. And then another big area, the business owners, we mentioned them as clients when we talked about the clients. So a lot of business owner clients will do corporate investments. So people that have got good funds in their business looking to invest and see some of that working harder for them, all the way down to them as sort of personal individuals and families. So those business owners making sure they personally build their own wealth as well.
One of my favourite meetings I had recently, and the guy described his own personal finances. Kieran, this is a pig's ear. He looked at it and said, to be honest, I've got buy-to-lets, I've got money here, I've got money there, I've got retirement plans here, I worked abroad for a little bit. There was just this pile of stuff. And
it's overwhelming.
Yeah, and it was, I appreciate, I can't do this on my own. I need someone to help me. Let's dive into this. And it sounds quite bad to say, but as the Chancellor makes things more complicated, probably keeps us in work, to be honest,
Absolutely,
as things get more convoluted. So
yeah, you're right. We've definitely all been on the receiving end of somebody coming in with a box of paperwork, old pensions,
some quite impressive,
old,
plans and
well
things, that they put together.
And I think sometimes you get a client that has the idea of what they think is the most important, and then it's only when you actually do a real deep dive and understanding of what it is that they actually want that they realize, I never even thought of that. I didn't even know you could do that. I never knew that kind of trust existed. So a lot of our job's actually to educate people as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose if we were to put, the services we offer into kind of one phrase, it would be lifestyle financial planning. Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit more in detail about what that actually is?
Yeah. So I think it's a relatively new concept here in the UK, if I'm honest. But I think what became of the industry, and I've touched on this before, but I think it's good to speak about it again, was that generally advisory firms sold products. And the advice became about that one product in isolation. Did it go up, down, or sideways? That's it. Now, as an advisor, you start to question, well, does that actually add value? Does it ensure that your advice is still suitable? It's quite hard to justify that if you only look at one product in isolation. What lifestyle planning is all about is looking at it to say, okay, let's start with the end in mind. What do you want to achieve? Why? Where are you now? Where do you need to get to? And what are the gaps in between? And basically what the advice becomes about is, this is the end goal. How close are we to getting there? Mm-hmm. And Martin and I both had experiences where you can tell clients we're 5 years ahead of the plan. That's fantastic. Equally, there's sometimes you have the difficult conversations to say, right, okay, we actually need to do a little bit more work here. We need to be saving more here. We need to be using more salary sacrifice, whatever that might be. It's actually taking a proper lens to understand this is what good looks like to you, and this is how we want to get there, rather than just make it about one individual product.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really exciting because when you're doing those annual reviews, you are able to see the progress. So if you've got a client that's been with you for 5 years, you've got a plan in 15 years' time, we're going to achieve it, retirement, it's going to look like this, and showing them that we're on that path, something like COVID happens and the markets fall or something else happens, but showing the progress that we're making to that. I'm quite a visual person, so I love that. You're able to have a plan and work around it. And hey, plans always change as well, so we need to be adaptable to that for clients.
Yeah, we're seeing more of that, though, aren't we? Because I think people want to know the answer today. So it's a case of, right, the common one we hear about pensions, isn't it? How much money do I need in my pension? Now, the truth is that it depends. What do you want to do?
How much you want to spend.
Yeah. What do you want to do? And I think maybe touched on this before, that some of our wealthiest clients really don't spend much money.
No.
I mean, one of the chaps I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, and he thought he was splashing out. He bought a new pair of Levi's for 90 quid. And honestly thought that was him splashing out. But he likes to look after his grandkids and look after the garden. That's what he likes to do. Mm-hmm. Equally, we've had clients that were speaking about the Ritz-Carlton cruises that we were talking about, Emma.
The dream.
It just shows you anything's possible. But it's good to understand that and see, well, visually, where are we on that journey and what do we need to do to get there? So for me, it's a really exciting concept, something I think that is going to add more value to our clients going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose that's why it's so important to be able to have those regular meetings, with the client, to be able to show them the progress, make sure it's still on plan, all that sort of stuff. Now, something I'm sure comes up all the time with clients, of course, is the fees.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. The age-old question.
I know.
And listen, advice is not free. There's information that is free. Advice is not. And this is actually something that the FCA actually wanted to introduce a few years ago, because they even agree advice has value and it should be paid for. But how does it work? Is there a one-size-fits-all in our industry? No. Different firms do different things. Different firms derive value in different ways. They specialize in different things. So obviously the fees can't be uniform across the board. Generally though, what you find is that firms either do one of two: percentage-based charging or fixed fee. Percentage-based is based on how much money you have invested with that firm across various different wrappers, etc. There will be a fee deducted from that. Generally, these tend to be initial fees, ongoing fees, platform fees, and fund costs, because obviously there's a cost to running all these things. The alternative is fixed fee, where it's just a set pounds and pence sterling figure. So let's say if you wanted to do a pension transfer of 5 pension plans, they would tell you pounds and pence every time. That's what it would cost, or it's based on a percentage basis. Now, I think we spoke about this before. We're not going to get into an online argument about saying which is better and which is worse. It is what it is. From our perspective, we work things on a percentage basis. We also had to do a value assessment to become directly authorised. So that involved the FCA actually reviewing our charges for them to look at it and say, yeah, we think that meets consumer duty principles. We're okay, guys. We're comfortable with it. Our clients are comfortable with it. But what we've tried to do is be really transparent. So on our website, and that's Emma, it's a good bit of work you and I did, wasn't it? We have a page that's all about charges, and it gives you real life examples of if you had this or if you invested X, the charges would be Y. And I think that's our job as an industry. Let's be more transparent about fees. Let's have that upfront conversation, because equally, I don't think clients do expect anything to be free.
No, and I think I love that we've got them so clear and transparent on the website, because too often if I'm speaking to another client and they maybe have spoken to another advisor, they'll tell me what they think the charges are, and 9 times out of 10 it doesn't sound right, and it's because they're only talking about their initial advice fee. They haven't talked about their ongoing, they haven't talked about the platform, the funds. And I really like on our website, we've given a range to those things. Say, well, out of all the funds we've got access to, the ones that we've put into our portfolios, it ranges from this to this. So anyone can go onto the website and see exactly what our yearly charges, the upper end of the lower end of that is. And I think that's amazing, because many companies I've gone on to, and it hasn't been the most clear way to look at this is what the charges are. So for us, we want to be transparent with clients. And like you say, I don't think clients expect things for free. You can't run a business, have an amazing team in the office that we're in. You can't run it for free. So I don't think anyone's out there looking for free advice. But I think it's really fair that you've got the charges sort of disclosed nice and clearly.
Yeah, we always finish meetings the same way. I always say to clients, right, this is the whole enchilada. At the end, this is what the charges are. Does that make sense? Are you okay with it? Do you understand it? I think is the key bit. Because the other part about the charging structure, particularly in the regulated world, is breaking down where the costs are and why they are what they are. I think that bit is so important, because I think then that helps people see value. Because costs are important, they are, but it's the value behind it I think is the most important. And the people that really get the most from advice are the people I think that see the value behind all those costs.
Yeah, it's quite not funny, but almost funny that in certain companies I've dealt with, non-regulated, non-financial advice, it's quite crazy that they can come up with this is what I'm going to charge, or this is the price of something, and if you're willing to pay it, then they'll get paid it. Whereas in our industry, we have to be really comfortable and confident with our charges. We have to complete a value assessment. So every single summer, we have to do a board report, which is our value assessment report. And we need to believe and evidence that we have delivered fair value to our clients. And I think we mentioned this in podcast 1 or 2, if I remember rightly. Like, that was a really exciting thing to go through, to set up the charging structure and challenge ourselves to make sure that we are delivering absolute value to our clients. So
do you think there'll be a day that there's going to be, like what happened with the Oasis tickets in the summer, dynamic pricing and financial advice? Depending on what month you ask, the charges might be different.
When the busy period comes at tax year end, dynamic pricing goes up.
From an ops point of view, it's really helpful actually to have it so structured, because at least you can, for you guys, you can tell a client confidently this is what the charges will be. And from an ops point of view, like, we know the standard pricing. We don't have to be like, oh, we better chat with the advisor what the fees are going to be.
I think also in the past, advisory firms got themselves into a lot of bother because it was the charges. Well, it depends in terms of, did you ask for a discount or did the other guy not? And you can't
It's not
do
fair,
that.
is it?
No,
No.
the consumer duty outcome's got to be the most important. That was everyone treated fairly across the board?
Yeah.
And I guess on that note, we do have tiered charges as well. So based on the value of what's been brought to the table, we do look at these things. So we do look at things on an individual basis, but it's something that's clear and easy for everyone to understand. That's the most important bit.
Yeah. And Katie, now onto your favourite topic.
Yeah, go on.
Investment proposition.
Yeah. So obviously, this is something I've got a real passion around. It's one of the main drivers, if I'm honest, that made us want to become a directly authorised and independent firm. Now, this is actually going to have its own podcast on its own to really go into all the details, but I think it's worth just touching on the way we look at things. So the great thing with being independent is you can use anyone you want. The bad news is you can use anyone you want. So it's one of these to try and navigate this to say who's going to add the most value to clients. Now, what we did was look at the market to feel, okay, what were the bits that were the most important? Where did we think that we could derive the most value? Where could you get access to as many funds as you possibly could? And that's why we chose the platform we worked with. Now, I will go on the record and say, do I think a low-cost passive solution is suitable for the vast majority of people? Yeah, I think so. And again, I'll expand on that in a little bit more detail in the next podcast. But what we want to try and do is, again, deliver good investment outcomes for clients and good value in terms of cost as well. We're also not bound or restricted by any individual provider. So it's not that we will only use Fidelity or we will only use BlackRock. If we think there's a better fund that's out there and is for sale in the UK, great. We'll look at it and we'll use it. And we'll make that part of our investment management committee meetings to be able to justify that decision. Because this is really important, I think, for clients to know. Can we just do whatever? No. You have to be able to justify any changes that you make to your portfolios. Yeah, but why? Why does this make sense? Why does this deliver better outcomes? It's not cowboy country. We could just decide one day, right, that's it. I'm going to go and do this now. It has to be measured. It has to match your client's risk profile, what you want to achieve. Even down to really technical bits like liquidity of the fund and all that kind of stuff. But that's the advisor's responsibility to look at. What I often find with the individual investor is they know a bit, but when it comes to if you ask them, well, how does your fund compare to the beta? They have no idea what you're talking about. What sort of alpha? Yeah, don't know what that is. What sort of Sharpe ratio? Not a clue. So you can be an investor without having that knowledge. That's why they have the self-service platforms. But from our side of things, that having that more measured and technical approach can deliver better outcomes. And that's why I think a client would want to receive advice, because they want that kind of expertise. Because again, I'll go on record, if you want to do it yourself,
that's it. There's platforms out there. There's ones that'll give reports on certain funds, certain fund managers, make predictions on trends. Sometimes they'll get it right. Sometimes they'll get it wrong, of course. Yeah. So that is, the great thing now is everything's at people's fingertips. And I do find, that for many clients, the reason that they use us or want to deal with us is for that exact reason. They don't want to take that onus on themselves.
No. And sometimes I've had clients that kind of had their fingers burnt, would you say? Maybe doing it themselves a couple of years and think, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah, a few wrong decisions. Yeah.
So is that maybe one of the reasons you find that clients typically engage with you if they've struggled doing it themselves?
It is, yeah. Just exactly what Kieran just said about, the fingers getting burnt potentially. That, I've seen it multiple times, especially up here in the energy sector. That there's sort of people thinking, oh, this company's going to make more money, or this company's just hit oil, they'll make more money. They get individual shares. Some of them have amazing stories to tell. Some of them have really tragic stories to tell, and everything in between. So I do find there's been a number of clients that we have welcomed in to say, I've managed my portfolio myself for the last 5-10 years. I've got it to this point. Now I see that as a big bit of money that I no longer want to look after. I want to get professional advice. And that's not a bad way to start, that because of the costs involved, because of regulation, sometimes, unfortunately, with clients that are just starting out with their investment journey, maybe we aren't the best place for them. Maybe that online, cheaper platform is better. But I've seen many clients get to a certain point and say, right, I now want this professionally managed. I don't sleep well at night knowing I've got £200,000 that I am looking after and I could get wrong. So I'd say that's some of the clients that we welcome. Quite a lot of the clients that we welcome, it is life event driven. Have they just maybe received an inheritance? Have they maybe got their family to a point where they're like, right, now we need to get serious. We need this lifestyle plan. We need to have a plan in place. I want to retire at a certain point. I'd say the majority of our clients quite often come to us too late. So I'll hear it probably at least once a week. I wish we met you sooner. I wish we'd done this 10 years ago. And those clients are great because then they get their kids involved much sooner. So you're dealing with Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so in their 60s, but now you've got their 30, 40-year-old children involved to say, right, don't do the same thing I done. Get a plan in place sooner. So, very often we see clients when they say, we wish we'd done something sooner.
Christmas is coming up. Jaisa for Christmas.
Christmas, exactly. And that's it. Joking aside, a lot of the grandparents we've got, you can put up to £9,000 right now into a junior ISA. You can put £2,880 into a pension, a kid's pension. I love that one because that's £720 tax relief you get for free, basically. So that's a big one, and I think that's, for me anyway, that gets the kids, a really good platform for the future as well. So we've got a lot of family clients actually, where a life event, they move house, something happens, and they want to get a plan in place.
There's been a trend I've seen over the past 2 years particularly. And it's been say for example, I'm being slightly sexy here, but it's been the husband that has managed the finances for the last little while. But they might have had a health scare, maybe 5 or 10 years older than their spouse, and they've thought, well, if something happens to me, I'm a bit concerned, and I would like someone to be there for my partner, be there for my wife. And it's been nice to be able to be that kind of support bridge as well, that yes, there's the technicals and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of it's just being there, just being a coach, being able to listen, being able to empathize with people. Because we'll all go through difficult things in life. We will all go through those hard experiences. But I think if you've got a trusted advisor there, it doesn't remove the pain or the difficulties, but it maybe just helps support the process.
Someone to go to, and just to know, that people know who to go to, who will give them advice.
There's some of the other bits. I mean, I've even had clients get in touch with me and say, I'm thinking about taking this promotion with X company, but can we have a chat for 10 minutes? Like, I want to discuss the employee benefits, things like, would this actually be better for me? Yeah, let's have a chat about it. Now, technically, that's not really, one of the listed services that we've got. But if you can help someone, why wouldn't you do that? All the way down to the little things of, someone took out a life insurance policy years ago. It's still suitable. It's the right thing for them, but it's not in a trust. And actually, if it's not in a trust, then the life insurance provider may not know who to pay the money to. Your beneficiaries might have to go to the courts to get money. Now, putting the plan in a trust costs £0 and 0 pence. It's a really easy thing to do, but without that oversight, they wouldn't have known that. So it's all these little things, I think, that can play a huge role for clients.
It is. It's quite funny. I was just reflecting there just last week. There was 2 or 3 clients that got in touch, and all the messages started with, I know this isn't financial advice, but can you help with this? One of it was more straight into accounts. One of it was probably more straight into counselling. And, it's just funny, like the few clients that have, I want to get a new motorhome. Can I get a new motorhome? Almost asking my permission. Can I take some money out of my investment or my pension? So it's that trusted advisor. And I loved what you said earlier with that sort of maybe potentially older generation saying, I want somebody there should something happen to one of us.
Yes.
And I've had a few clients that have introduced me to their parents because they want that. They want that solid relationship. We've built really good trust, and they're saying, look, can you go and help mum and dad? I worry that if something happened to one of them, it might not be, as clear and easy for them to deal with. And, just putting the whole family to ease.
It's definitely a comfort, knowing that there's that dedicated person, but also we know from, if the worst was to happen, you've got to deal with all these providers. They're not easy to deal with, so at least that's something we can kind of take off their shoulders for a little bit.
Definitely.
Yes.
And I think it's even funny when I think about it, and we've worked together even in a professional capacity, even from advice capacity, since what's that been, like 5 years now. And it's interesting even how much your life's changed over the last 5 years and how much the plans needed to change towards that. So you're probably a living proof of actually that's the difference it can make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like going back to the JISA thing you were saying earlier, like as a parent, it's nice to know that that's in place. So when he's 18 or 21 or whatever, I don't need to be like, right, where am I getting money for a house deposit for from,
Or his car.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's just going to be there. I don't have to worry about it.
We're seeing that, aren't we, with the younger generation, that it is getting harder and harder and harder to make those big purchases and life decisions. So I think free tip for anyone listening to the podcast now, if there's anything you can do to help your kids, grandkids, get started early. That's a free nugget of advice for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's your favourite part about advising clients?
Oh, that's a good question.
I guess that for me, there's two sides to that. There's the building the wealth up, and then obviously spending it. Both are really great to see clients. So the building the wealth. Like people that are going through promotions, getting big bonuses, they're taking your advice, they're contributing, the amounts that they need to, and they achieve their plan early. Like that's amazing. But probably the best part of it is telling somebody like you can retire now. So we've been working on this plan for the last few years. You want to retire at 63, you're 61 next month, and actually you can retire now. And like that's amazing for me, because it's just so nice to be able to say to somebody. And unfortunately, some people don't enjoy their jobs, they're in high stress environments, and they really do want to retire sooner. So being able to allow somebody or to tell somebody, look, you're fine, you can retire. Because too many people worry, do I have enough? When do I have enough? And we've got that plan in place.
It'll never feel like enough.
It will never feel like
you
enough.
Don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, the best part about the job is telling somebody, look, you need to start booking business class tickets because you've got too much wealth.
Yeah, I'd echo that point. I think it's just giving people that certainty and clarity, because life is stressful in many different ways and many different facets. But if you can take this one thing off of someone, it's quite a relief. And even you can see it in their feeling of like, God, I'm not in this alone. So even if they're just getting started and they kind of feel, right, I've got someone in my corner, someone that's working with me, all the way down to like what Martin had said, where now it's I had a client say to me the other week, he's sort of sat back in his chair and thought, so I don't really need to worry about money anymore, do I, Kieran? Well, no, you don't. And hey, it's taken time. It's taken work on both our ends to get there. And a lot of the success is down to himself as well and how he's managed things. But it is nice to have played a part in that story and think advice has been able to help you. And I think the good thing is that'll never go away. There'll always be those little pockets of success and little things clients will see, won't there?
It will. And individual clients, it's really important for us, to feel those wins each and every time with clients, that we've achieved something, we're working towards something, or they've managed to purchase what they plan to in retirement. But something else that I was reflecting on actually just coming into the podcast was, reviews, so feedback from all our clients. So we always ask for feedback. We strive to give that 5-star level of service, but we also always want feedback to take on board any improvements that we can make in the business.
Well, it's only way you get better, isn't it? Feedback and honest feedback as well.
Totally. So we always encourage that. So what I thought in a negative way I would start with was looking at, well, actually, we've had 18 bad reviews. So 18 reviews out of the 260 odd reviews are 4-star. 4 out of 5.
Shocking.
So that's the worst reviews that we've had. So that's amazing. Let's not beat ourselves up over that. And
they
a lot
do
of those
stick out because we're used to the
they
5-star.
They do. And we strive for perfection in our work. We strive for that. So we strive for 5-star. So of course we're going to be upset if it's not 5-star. And to be honest, looking at those and analysing them, most of them were down to something like, value for advice. Did the client feel they were getting value for advice? And scoring 4 out of 5 is not bad, but it's still not 5 out of 5. And what was really interesting is that was from our restricted days. So episode 2, we spoke about saving £650,000 a year for our clients. So we have managed to reduce our charges and lifestyle planning, the platforms we've got access to. We are delivering what we believe is better value. So actually, I really hope we have addressed those 18 reviews that maybe gave us 4 out of 5. And we've got 240 odd reviews, 5 out of 5, which is just incredible. It's really amazing. We were awarded top rated firm status just last year. All of our advisors, myself, Lee, Kieran, we've always been top rated advisor, and we take that serious. So we want individual wins for the client, but selfishly as a business, we want that 5-star review, and we want that wins as a team as well. We all get so excited when we get that feedback.
When the trophies arrive every year, and they're like, get that one up. It's good though. One of the things I really like about the platform we use for this called Vouch For is the questions that they ask the client. So one of the things they've added into the review is, do you understand how the charges work?
Yes.
Now, I really like that because, truth being told, when clients come to us, particularly around investment advice, pension advice, and with their existing investments, if I ask them, do you understand how your charges work today? 9 out of 10 times the answer is no. Whereas what we want to be is transparent. If our clients can answer that every year, yep, I know exactly what I pay, I know exactly the value of it, I'm happy with that. To me, that's great. That's what a good outcome is. So on that note, that might be a good place for us to close. Hopefully we've managed to wrap up enough details of how we work and what it means to be a Welsh Taylor client. So Martin, Emma, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for watching and listening as well. If you have any questions, of course, we'd love to hear them. You can get us on welshandtaylorwealth.co.uk. and we will see you again soon for another podcast. Take care.